Today's guest is one of the best young players in the world. He's already won a Premier League, 2 WFA Cups, and of course the Champions League, and now he's even the captain of his club. On the international stage, he's got 31 goals in his 39 caps, and he's done all of this before the age of 18. They call him the Star Boy. It's the one and only Dan McLellan.
No substitutes. Dan McLellan fires an effort goal bound within 10 seconds. He finds a way to take all the nerves out. What a brilliant strike it was.
Yeah, what a finish from Dan McLellan. A lovely bit of play. Kyle Alexander perhaps naively just laid it up straight onto the front bumper of John Dixon, and Dan McLellan makes absolutely no mistake.
Gonna fire it into the box, over to Dan McLellan. Is it his hat-trick? Yes it is. 11 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. Dan McLellan has 3.
Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you all having a wicked day. This video I got a really special guest with me. What's up, Dan?
Yeah, not too much. Excited to be on the channel. I do watch the videos where I can, some like the analysis videos, and it's an honor to be on here.
Thank you so much. First of all, what do you think of the videos? Let me know. Be honest.
I like them. I watched the John Balding Central Maestro review the other day.
Yeah.
That was good. I liked that. Seeing a few of the Aspire clips, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the channel's got to offer this season.
Yeah, well, getting used massive, so hopefully we can keep it going. But yeah, man, so I've got a bunch of questions for you. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm all good to go. Let's go.
Man, let's do it. First of all, man, congratulations. You're the Aspire's new captain. What is that like? Let me know.
Yeah, the news itself came as a little bit of a shock. It was actually like after the last Nationals weekend, after the games, I found out from John himself, and it's like an honour, obviously, to be asked. It was a surprise in the first place, is like, you think as long as John's playing, you're so used to him being that captain figure, aren't you? And he still will be that. He'll obviously be the player coach still at Aspire, and he's very much hanging around until he gets that World Cup, I think. So there's no worry of him going anywhere soon. But being able to sort of learn the ropes with him still there for me to kind of speak to about things and work from, that'll be really good this season, I think.
And yeah, sorry, how old are you, mate? Can you just confirm?
I'm 17.
17. So captain at 17. It's not just any team. This is Aspire. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's like, it's something I wouldn't have expected, to be honest, at this age. But I am really honoured to have it. And obviously, as you say, not any club, it is Aspire. And like I said, any team with John Balding in, he walks into that captaincy spot. So him believing in me enough to choose me to have this role is obviously a really huge thing for me. And I'm really proud of it. So
did he like call you and tell you, or how did that work?
Nah, so it was actually really nice. We as we always do at Aspire, when we've got like a busy Nationals weekend, we don't always stay in the same hotel. We try, and at the hotel we do stay at in Nottingham, we have a deal with them where we get a conference room on a Saturday night where we can like eat our food and do like whatever we want to do and just have a bit of social time, because we're a very tight family. We've got a very tight bond as a team and with the parents as well. So it was in there. We'd had our curry. It was the final weekend. We knew that the next day the league was going to be a challenge, but like the vibes were still very high. Like the categories were flowing. Like everyone was playing games. We were having a good laugh. And then John just sort of called a speech, and we were a bit worried because we started off, and I was like, "This can't be the retirement speech, surely not, not this early." But nah, it wasn't. He baited us all out, and it was the he basically said, I feel like it's the right time to hand it over, and obviously I went all red, and I was very like excited and honoured about it. But yeah, no, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and that's how we did it.
That's amazing, man. That's a massive achievement. But yeah, so congratulations. So what would you say is your ultimate goal, like just in prior to football?
That's a tough one. Ultimate goal. I'd say it has to be, like, I think it has to be the World Cup. Winning the World Cup, whether that's the next one or in 10 years. Like, obviously, you want it to be the one in October, but if I can just win one World Cup in my career, that would be, like, I'd feel like I'd really achieved what I wanted to achieve. Because I think it's tough to say at the start of your career what you want to achieve, because you don't know what level you're going to get to. Like, you don't even know if you're going to play in the Premiership, for example. So, like, you kind of have to see where things take you, but you've got to dream big. And, like, my dream is always to win the Premiership, and then after doing that, you think that you're going to feel like you've achieved everything you want to now, but then there's always something else to go for, if you know what I mean. Like, if you won one Premiership, you want to win the Cup, then you want to win the Champions League, and then it's the World Cup. And then I'm sure, like, even the French, for example, they won their first World Cup, and they would have been feeling like they want to win another. So if you are one of those people that wants to win, I don't think, like, the hunger for winning ever really goes away. So winning one World Cup would be my dream, but I'm sure if it is the next one, I want to try and use the rest of my career to win another one.
Yeah, I think that's part of being a winner, right? When you win, you just want to keep winning,
Yeah.
keep the trophies coming in, and that's really shows what your attitude is like. You're a winner, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's very easy sometimes to feel like if you've achieved something, you can rest on your laurels and say, like, let's say if someone's won the league, like, let's say Leeds won the league last season, it'd be very easy for people to, like, from the outside, imagine that they're going to be thinking, yeah, we've done our job now, we've come together in our first season, we've won the league. But obviously they're not going to be thinking that. They've signed Toby now from Denmark that was at Greenbank last season. That's been announced, and so they're obviously making strides to keep their team, maintain it, and have strength in that team. And they're not going to be thinking, yeah, now all our focus can go on England. They're going to be thinking, let's just keep focusing on the league as well and make sure we can try and put ourselves in a good position to win another. Because I don't think any big player ever wants to just sit there and watch other people win trophies alongside them. They want to be right in there winning them themselves.
Yeah, it's a massive signing for them. No doubt they're going to be a threat. So yeah, it'll be an exciting season coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's go back right to the beginning. How did you first find out about Powerchair football? And what made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so I think I was about maybe 8 years old when I first found out about it. I'd always, as like is a story with a lot of players to get into Powerchair football, I'd always loved the running game. I'd always watched loads of football, and I was always playing FIFA or PES or whatever. And like in the playground at school, I was always trying to get involved where I could, if it was like sitting in goal or refereeing or whatever it was. And then I was actually going to collect a day chair, I think from Sevenoaks, and my dad then got speaking to someone about the actual football chairs, and I ended up then hearing about Powerchair football, and my closest club, so we heard about it. I didn't then go and play at Sevenoaks. My closest club was then Northampton, so I went and played at Northampton in a Storm chair it was at the time, I think. And yeah, I got playing in the Storm. I've actually said this before to people, and I think Chris Gordon, I've spoken to about it, because he then came to me after hearing me say it and said he had the same experience, where I actually didn't fall in love with it the first time I played. It was then I came back and I was like, I don't know if it's for me. Like, I love the beautiful passing side of football. And obviously, no offense to Northampton, but I went to the first session, and where it was like a bit more of like a development team, we were in the Storm chairs. We weren't like playing 40-yard passes or like whatever, like I was hoping. I was expecting to go there and like everyone be pinging it around like Iniesta, but it wasn't quite what I was hoping for or expecting. But then my mum kind of convinced me to have another go. I was a bit defeated, and I was like, nah, I'm never gonna be able to play football now. If that wasn't for me, then I don't know what will be. But my mum made me have another go, and so I went back, gave it another try, and from then I just went every week and actually started really enjoying it. And then obviously my career progressed, and I went on to the Aspire Hub.
Yeah, mum's always right, innit? She got you back
I guess
into
so,
it.
yeah. Yeah, she always brings that up and says, where would I be without that? But it's true. If she hadn't told me to go back, I don't know if I would still be playing it, to be fair.
So that was in a Storm chair, yeah?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it wasn't much passing? Because
I think so, yeah. It was just, it's so much harder to get the power, isn't it, as we know. Obviously, like, in the TDXs and the Storms, those kind of older ones without the square bumpers, it's much harder to get the power, isn't it, and to get that that ball moving compared to what it is now with the strike forces, and especially with how the chairs are tuned now. People are pinging the ball so much better. Like a perfect example is when we're at our England camps now. When I think back to like 2 or 3 years ago when I first came in, the rondos that we do now, you get sometimes periods where it's like 5 or 6 minutes in a court with a rondo and the middleman just can't get anywhere near the ball because people are just smashing passes so hard that before you even know where they're going, they're gone. Because that's how good the chairs are now. So I think that's a massive development that makes the game even more enjoyable. And I think if I was coming for the first time now, I can't see myself not loving it, especially with how much footage there is as well. Because I'm sure if it was back then and there was that much footage, I would have just watched a game and saw actually that is a level that I can get to. And even if I didn't necessarily enjoy the first training session, I would have seen players passing the ball around for fun and realised that if I do get good enough, there's a level where I can play football like I like to play football.
Yeah, I think it helps when you see the top level guys play.
Sure.
Because obviously when you watch, not top quality players play, they probably don't pass as much. But when you see the caliber guys playing now, it just shows you how much the sport's developed, right?
Yeah. Obviously, like, there are going to be cagey games that you watch. Like, if you watch top of the table clashes or you watch, like, the top international teams going against each other, obviously sometimes there'll be periods where neither team wants to lose and it's a really big occasion. If it's like a final game in a cup or a really important game in a league, there is going to be times where the ball's not moving, but then that sheer like ability to get it moving when teams want to, and the players now that can just with a click of a finger decide, all right, I want to ping this ball, and they can. That is the thing that really changes the game, especially among the top players.
Yeah, it's about decision making as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you get from Northampton to Evergreen? Evergreen was your first season, right?
Yeah, so what happened is I then obviously I don't know how we heard about this by Hub, to be honest. I can't remember, but I came and I tried out and I just gave a session a try, and I was using a Club DB bullet chair. They had like the orange and black chairs. I don't know if you remember.
They were horrible.
Yeah, and I was using one of those, and I was playing with what was at the time the Aspire Lions, which was kind of like the development team below Evergreen. So obviously at that time you had like the 4 teams. You had Aspire, Evergreen, Monster Warriors, and the Aspire Lions. And so I came just to like see how I liked it with the Lions, and then had a week or 2 of training with them. And then it was crazy how it happened. After that, I think it was on the Friday night before a Nationals with Evergreen, just like halfway through the season, Ross Baker, he called my dad and was like, we're a player short here. Like, there's Nationals tomorrow. Can you bring Dan up for a day just so we have the extra player? And obviously that was a bit of a no-brainer. Like, I was starting to really enjoy the sport by then. And so getting asked to come and play actual competitive league football was like, obviously I was going to do that. So I literally came up the next day. I think I had the call at like 9 or 10 o'clock the night before, and came the next day. And whilst obviously I wasn't like a great player at that time, and I was just there to make up the numbers, just being around that competitive environment, I think spurred me on even more to keep improving, in the knowledge that if I did improve, there was this space for me to go and actually play really competitively.
And can you remember what your first game was? Who did you play against? Or do you remember?
I think it might have been, if I'm completely wrong, my bad. I feel like it could have been Nottingham Forest, you know. I think it would have been Evergreen. Maybe Nottingham Forest. I can't really remember. It was obviously in the Championship, and I can't remember who it was. But I do remember, I think we lost. But I stayed with it, so it wasn't too bad.
And yeah, I was actually obviously with you at that time.
Yeah, of course.
I was trying to think. First time I met you, I was like, who is this annoying little kid? I'm not sure about this guy. And I remember I used to tell you some instructions, and you used to actually listen. And I was like, oh, this guy, maybe he's got something.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this from you. I mean, I don't know where it's come from, mate. But you absolutely smashed it.
Thank you.
So then you went for obviously Evergreen. How many seasons? Was it one?
I think I had, like 1 season, and then the playoffs came, and unfortunately, like, we weren't able to stay in through the playoffs. That wasn't the best first season, but I think I learned a lot from it still, because to come in and my first season be such a tough one, where we obviously like losing the majority of games and in the relegation playoffs, I felt like it couldn't really have got worse than that. So I kind of got used to the feeling of like hardship, and then that meant that in the future, if I did lose a game or my team was behind, I felt like I had a bit more experience of grinning, bearing it, and then being able to maybe make a comeback.
Yeah, I was absolutely devastated because obviously Evergreen got obviously out of the league.
Yeah,
It was quite terrible. But yeah, like I said, maybe that's what made you such a good player. Learning how to deal with the struggles.
Yeah, very well could have been.
Absolutely. So then you went to was Muscle Warriors after that.
Yeah,
And yeah, how was that? What was the difference, do you think,
I
between
think
Evergreen?
I think like obviously at Evergreen we were struggling a bit for players, weren't we? Which is why I got the call in the first place.
Yeah.
Evergreen had a bit of a lack of players, whereas Muscle Warriors had loads of players, and there was a bit more free movement between Aspire and the Muscle Warriors team at that time, in the terms of like players coming down into the Muscle Warriors team and going up into the Aspire team. So like the squad was strong at Muscle Warriors, and so I went in there, and I only got really like half a season at Muscle Warriors, because if you remember, it was the COVID season, the
Yeah, that's right.
one where like I think there was 3 weekends that got played in that season, and that was all I played with Muscle Warriors. But I remember we started the season like not great. Like each weekend we would maybe win, like if we had a 4 or 5 game weekend, we'd maybe win 2 and lose 2 kind of thing. So like we weren't the worst team in the league, but we weren't like fighting right at the top. And I actually remember the final weekend, I think it was in January or February, before COVID happened and stopped all the football. We won 5 games out of 5, which was like the first time that I'd ever been in a team that had done anything similar to that, because I kind of obviously was used to losing loads. And so that was like, wow, I've actually finally got a taste of winning properly rather than just like winning the odd game, and that the feeling was unreal. And I was gutted when COVID did come, because I think we'd got up to like 4th in the table after that weekend. So obviously we probably wouldn't have got promoted, because there was a lot of strong teams in the league that year. I think you had like Newcastle, Teesside, Leeds, all teams that are like right up at the top of the Premiership now. But either way, it was good to get that first taste of actually I can play in a team that's fighting at the top of a division, and it was just a shame that COVID came and cut it short.
So that's crazy. So you had half a season at Evergreen.
Yeah.
You had half a season at Muscle.
Yes. Yeah, it was weird how it happened. It was just obviously with Evergreen, I got just like a late call up, and then I ended up staying. So that was kind of like out of nowhere. And then Muscle Warriors got cut short because of COVID. Like obviously I would have had a full season, or maybe even 2, if it wasn't for COVID. But the 2019-20 season, which is when I joined them, that was cut in half. And then there wasn't even a 2020 to 21 season. That just didn't exist because of COVID. And like obviously we were quite late to get back compared to the running game. So yeah, just it happened by coincidence, I guess.
That's insane, man. What a career so far.
Yeah, a very weird career, but it's worked out okay.
So then does John Bowling just call you and say, yo mate, come to Spa? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was a weird one. So I can't remember exactly when we went back to training, but it was whenever like the guidelines obviously came out from like the FA and the WFA about whether clubs could like safely go back to training. And so we went back whenever it was in 2021 at some point with like our masks on and like sort of doing drills with like social distance or whatever. I can't really remember, to be fair. It was whatever the guidance said at the time. And I was training with Muscle Warriors still, because that was the squad I was in. And then we had maybe 2 or 3 months of training where every training session, Aspire would train and Muscle Warriors would train separately. We had like a 2-court venue, so we'd train on the different courts. That was at Oakland's college. And then at the end of each session, we'd always do like an Aspire v Muscle Warriors game, just because obviously we didn't know when the league was going to come back, but we had to be ready when it did. So both the teams were kind of getting ready and doing that. And I was always kind of ended up playing in the middle for Muscle Warriors against Aspire. And obviously John was playing in the middle for Aspire. And I just think we had some good games. And like, obviously you expect Aspire to beat Muscle Warriors. And like a lot of the time we were getting beaten, but we were giving them good games. It might have just been like 1 or 2 nil each time. And we could like scoring some goals. And that was a good result for us at the time. And so I think it was just kind of, I was playing well in those training games, and John was like, even if there's a bit of talent in there, I guess it's worth trying it out. And so I didn't actually get called up originally for the Aspire squad like permanently.
Oh wow.
It was
Okay.
just it was just for, I don't know if you remember, like just after COVID, there was the first BT Sport game that was like
on TV, right?
So yeah, like it was called the Cup Final. It wasn't actually the WFA Cup Final because they played like the actual one at NTU that year, like at Nottingham Trent.
Okay.
So they just played it as like it was kind of an exhibition game, and there was a cup, but it wasn't the WFA Cup. It was just like a big trophy, for like a friendly, basically an exhibition, and it was a bit like the Evergreen situation where they just didn't have enough players. I think a couple of players might have been on holiday or something like that, so they only had like 5, and they just wanted one extra player for the bench so that it didn't look like they had a really narrow squad, like a really thin squad on BT Sport. So I was basically there again to fill up the squad for the TV and do the warm up and then sit and sort of cheer them on. And that was obviously, again, I was buzzing with that because being around John and being around Aspire was great in training, and I wanted to kind of go and just experience the atmosphere. And obviously being at St George's Park, like even though I knew I wasn't going to come off the bench at all, being at St George's Park for that cup final was obviously going to be a great experience. And at that time I didn't know if I was going to experience that again because I wasn't called up on like a permanent basis. I was just, in my eyes, called up for that game. But then off the back of that, John decided to just say, you know, like, actually, I know you've come for just this cup game, but let's have you for the next season. So that was like again a bit of a shock, but I was really happy with it, especially after experiencing that cup final and getting a bit of like a idea of what it's like to play in those really big matches. And I saw like I'm pretty sure it went to penalties in that game, and like seeing how intense those big games are and like all the supporters on the bleachers seeing and how just intense it is, that was enough to convince me to really want to join Aspire for their next season.
So you're just basically there for the vibes. You just thought,
literally, yeah. I was like water boy, basically, just there to like make sure the teams have even numbers on BT Sport, basically. But yeah, it was a bit of a lucky break.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy story.
Yeah,
How you got to Aspire, all these things you just said.
I know,
Incredible
mad
stuff.
Yeah.
So, what is one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
I don't think it would necessarily be something about like particular like technique in a game. It would more just be about being patient and like knowing that things will work out, because as I've kind of said to you, like so many lucky things happened that made my journey kind of work out as it has. And also I wouldn't change it because everyone's got like their own path they go on, and I don't think many people would change theirs because it's their personal one and it's the one they've like grown to love. And I wouldn't change anything that happened, but I would just learn to maybe like when I was at Evergreen and Worcester Warriors and I was hoping that I'd get them moved up and they weren't necessarily coming or whatever. And just like even at Evergreen when I wasn't getting the results, I just wish I knew to be a bit more patient and say like actually one day you will be progressing up through the teams and getting better results and enjoying your football more. And that kind of thing just all came in the end, but you don't expect it at the start, do you? You just see what's in front of you, and then obviously looking back on it now, I can say that if I just was a bit more patient back then and trusted the process, it all would have worked out anyway.
So do you think you were not patient? Were you getting a bit frustrated maybe?
I don't know. I think I don't think I was necessarily impatient. I was just frustrated, I guess. It was like, especially with Evergreen, where I was a very inexperienced player and one of the weaker ones in the team, and I was kind of frustrated with myself, I guess, in that like I'm not making an impact here. Like I really like football, but I'm not. I think I probably should have been more patient with myself in the sense of like I've only just started and I've been called up kind of out of nowhere. Like cut yourself a bit of slack. Like I had a very quick sort of start to my journey, and like it will come. The ability will come, and like the progression through the teams will come. So just like enjoy the experience rather than worrying about whether you're going to be good enough to play in this league or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a tough one because it's such a quick rise as well. You didn't really have time to sort of get used to everything. It just happened for you.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing. Like obviously I've had support to get through it. With that, obviously John's always kind of been a mentor, and like I've had my family, but it is tough. Like when I wouldn't change it for the world, and like, I'm so lucky that everything's happened this way and fallen this way. But at the same time, when you're shifting between the levels so quickly, you do have to adapt fast to make sure that you're not like falling behind.
That's what's so impressive, the way you just sort of adapted to each situation. That's a difficult thing to do, man.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough, and like there has been times where you really do feel like the jump. Like for example, obviously, when I went to Sydney and playing against like Momo and Brian for the first time, when all I'd ever really played against was teams from the UK, so like Ireland and Scotland, and obviously English players. So like playing against them for the first time, in like the first 5-10 minutes of that game, it was like a real wake up call. Like yes, I've done well to kind of make it to this point, but they're just, if I want to get anywhere near like their level, like there's a lot of work to do over the next couple of years. So that was definitely like a big thing that made me step back and think like, well, like as much as I've adapted to the level of getting to where I am, there's then like a whole nother level to adapt to, just from like being an international player to being like someone who can really compete in those big international games. So that was like a time where I was like, I've really got to get my act together here to try and adapt, or like it's going to be tough to get to that level.
Yeah, there's levels to everything, right?
Definitely.
Those guys are at the top.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking of England, I mean, how did you get called up? How did all that happen? Let us know.
Yeah, so it was actually, I was in like there's such a good pathway now, and I was kind of one of those people who experienced each layer of the pathway, if you know what I mean. So I started off with the bottom of the England pathway. You've got the RATP, which is like the regional pathway, where
Okay.
you get nominated by like the FA or the WFA. I don't know who it is. They send your club an email and they're like, "Is there anyone that you think you should nominate for like your regional emerging talent pathway?" So basically, a young player who you think could have a bit of potential from your team. And so like from the Aspire Hub, like Shay was on there. I'll probably miss people out, but and then I went on there as well. And that was for like the South, just the whole of the South, that regional one. And then from there, from like the regional one, I don't know how it works now, but it used to work like a couple of years ago, where then they would pick kind of 3 or 4 people from each region. So like 3 or 4 from the North, 3 or 4 from the Midlands, and then the same from the South, to then go and make up like the national emerging talent pathway, which is then kind of like the next step up. So then I got picked from like the South as like one of the 3 or 4 that would go on to the national talent pathway. And that was around like 2022, 2023, I think, yeah, it was like 2022. And then my first kind of big call up came for the development squad, like what it's now known as the development squad. There was a tournament, Home Nations, for the development squad in Largs in 2023. And so I got a call up for that, and like there was a couple of other young players that went as well, like Ollie Crawshaw. I've kind of been with him for a lot of the way through, and Ollie was there as well. And so for like both of us, we were both kind of came from the RATP into the NETP at the same time, and then made that call up together. So that was like, I think there'd been a development Home Nations the year before. That was like a slightly older generation of players. Like you had like your Dan Rigby, Lewis, Dylan, Greg, people like that in that year. And then like me and Ollie, I guess, were like the next batch that came in for that development squad. So I went to
Not a bad company to be in, is it? Not bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. So we went to Largs as part of the development squad, and I think that was like April or May 2023, and the World Cup was in October. And I guess just like there was a spot up for grabs, and if you performed well at that development Home Nations, then you would have been considered for the senior squad, because there was then a senior Home Nations the next month. Oh yeah, so it must have been April, that development one in Largs, because there was then a senior one in May in Dublin, and I think there was a spot up for grabs for the Dublin one, for like whoever performed well in that development one. So I went and played that tournament in Scotland, and like I felt like it had gone well, but I didn't think like anything was really going to come of it. It was more of just like I've played well. Like, I think I was one of the better players, but I at the end of the day, I was like 14, so my parents like kept me very grounded. I didn't have any like expectations of anything at all. Like especially not the senior squad, because like as far as I was concerned, like the youngest player in the senior squad was like 19, 20 at that point. So it wasn't even
That's a
really
bit crazy.
possible. I didn't think it was possible. It was kind of like a crazy thing to even dream to think about. But no, like Adam Crowell, who was like the assistant manager to Colin Gordon at that time, gave my dad a call like 2 or 3 weeks after that development tournament and said like, we've got the senior home nations in 2 or 3 weeks, and like we were happy with how Dan played at the development one. So
That's
like
crazy.
let's see if he can come along and make an impact at the senior one. And so that was how it happened. Literally, I was then off to Dublin like 2 weeks later, and as much as I was excited, it was again one of those things where like I was expecting, like with Aspire and with Evergreen, I'm probably just going to sit on the bench here, especially because like at that time I was so young, and I was like I wasn't quite I didn't feel at all that I was at the level of like you had like John and Chris and Ed and Marks in that team, who had been like the backbone of that team for a very long time. And like, obviously things have changed over time, but at that time like I was obviously nowhere near that level, in my eyes anyway. And so I thought I was going to just again kind of make up the number and be the eighth man, but I ended up going there and getting some game time, and I really enjoyed the experience. And like I'd played with John obviously for like a year or two at that point at Aspire, but going and playing with like 3 world-class players around you it was like unbelievable.
I'm noticing a theme here, right? It's the same thing. You go
Yeah,
somewhere, you get thrown in, you don't expect to play,
yeah,
then you play quite well, you get in. That
yeah,
tells you something, mate.
yeah. I think that's all it really comes down to, I guess. Like waiting for the opportunities to come, and that's like the advice I would give to anyone, is just wait for the opportunities to come, and then don't overthink them too much, and just try and do what you would do in any other game when it comes to it. Because I think it's so easy to like, if let's say someone's playing like a regional league game, it's like the last game on the Sunday, everyone's packed up and gone home. It's sometimes easy to play in those games because there's no pressure, like there's no one
Yeah.
watching, and it's just you, and you feel like it's just you in the pitch, and there's not really much outside attention. And then when it is like a game that everyone's watching, and it's like, if you play well in this game, you have a chance to go on and do something else. Sometimes people like heap extra pressure on themselves, I think, in those games, and say like, if I don't perform here, like my dreams are over or whatever, which is never true, because there's always second
Mate,
chances.
it's
And
funny you say that
yeah,
because I'm one of those guys.
really,
Put so
yeah,
much pressure. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's so hard not to. And I can't say that like I never have. Obviously, I've made like mistakes with that as well. I think I've just kind of always been like decent at managing that and trying to kind of put it into perspective that it is just another game of football. And like even though it feels like it's much higher stakes, if you do the things that you know that are the right things to do, that you would do at club level anyway, then the rewards are going to be the same.
It's good. Your mind's really clear. You have an objective in mind, and you don't go away from it. That you're determined. You stick to it. That's difficult to do.
Yeah, it's something that I'm still like, obviously mentally I'm still nowhere near perfect, and I don't think any footballer would tell you, or anyone that plays any sport or
No one's
does
perfect.
anything
Yeah.
high pressure in life, whether it's a job or whatever. I don't think anyone's going to tell you they've got the perfect mindset. But obviously, like over time, you learn things and you improve a bit. And so, like even if you can get 10-20% better at managing pressure, that's gonna have a really massive impact in terms of your percentage performance on the pitch.
Yeah, some good advice there for people watching. Just be patient as well, as you said. So, can you remember your first England tournament? What game was the first game? How did you feel? All that stuff.
So my first one was that one that I spoke about, the Dublin tournament, the Home Nations in 2023, and it was Scotland was my first game,
Okay.
and as I said, I went out there expecting I'm going to sit on the bench, like I'll watch these lads, it's going to be unbelievable because they're going to play lovely football, and it ended up that I was starting that game. I got there on the Saturday. We'd had like initiation on the Friday night. Like we got our shirts, had a meal. We're in the hotel or whatever. And I get there on Saturday morning. Like I'm like, I don't even need to get in my chair here. I'll just watch my day chair or something. And then I get in my chair and it's like, yeah, I was starting, so kind of had to snap out of whatever I was thinking before quite quickly and get in the mindset
How did
ready to
that
play.
feel?
And I'll tell you what, that was one of the most nervous I've been, because it's a whole different pressure. Like going from like development level to senior level, even, it's especially the age I was at. I was just like, I was bricking it. I'm not gonna lie, but
I'm not
I
surprised.
don't think there's no point in me sugarcoating it on here, because like I don't want people to think that I'm like, it's like unrealistic what I'm saying or anything. Like, it's very much like anyone else would be. I was terrified, but it was it then went well, the game, because as I've said before, like as I was saying just before, like I try to just treat it like any other game, and like I felt like I'd played harder games than that. I played harder games
Crazy.
at nationals, if you know what I mean. Like if you're playing against like a West Brom or a Northern Thunder, my kind of mindset was that in theory should be harder than a game in Scotland. It's just like the occasion that makes it such a bigger thing, isn't it? And sometimes you build like an occasion up so much in your head that you then like let it get on top of you. So I tried to just put it into perspective and also acknowledge the fact that I wasn't going into it alone. Like I had like top players around me and top coaches, so it wasn't really too much of a worry in the end. And I didn't have like a worldy game where I've like bagged an unbelievable goal from halfway line or whatever, but I did get my first goal in that game, little front bumper finish, and like to get off the mark and just start to feel a little bit comfortable that not necessarily I'm like made for this environment, but just like I can hold my own, I guess. That was the thing for me. Like that first tournament, it was just about not doing anything like unbelievable, just trying to hold my own, and I felt like I'd done that even in the first game. So that kind of took a bit of a weight off my shoulders for the rest of the weekend, to then go into games knowing that I can make an impact if I'm called upon.
Yeah, it's just a reassurance, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It just
That's
made
what
you
it
feel
was.
like, I
Yeah,
can play.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And then, so can I remember your first goal is what, front bumper finish? Was it a corner
Yeah.
or something?
I think it was
Can't
just
remember.
like, I think it was a counter attack, and it's like it was a typical like it's been reverse spun across the box or something, and it was
Yeah,
like it was one of them you
okay.
can't really miss. Like
Yeah,
if I'd missed it, I would have been hooked. I think that was kind of the situation.
England career
It was
over.
one of them. Yeah, that was like my name in lights gone. Like everything's over if I missed that. But no, it was just it was like it was a nice one to get off the mark. Like one that didn't have to be like too difficult. It was just one that settled my nerves and made me feel like I could relax into the game a bit more after that point.
Also, it tells you how competitive the Premier League is in England.
Yeah,
That certain games in the league is more difficult than international games. So I think that might have helped you a little bit as well.
yeah. I think any player that comes from like one of the big countries like England, France, America, you do get a massive advantage in the sense that like I don't want to single out countries, but let's say the countries that finish more like the back end of a Euros, for example, if the quality of players that they're playing against in their own league is players that are on their national team, they're never really getting the challenge of like an England or a France they're going to face at these
Yeah,
tournaments.
100%. 100%.
So that's why I think we see a lot of players from those kind of countries coming over now. Like we get so many Scottish and Irish players and Danish players coming over to our league now, and I don't, if you can kind of, I know how difficult it is financially and to get the time to do it, but if you can find a way to afford it and kind of get the time away from home to do it, I think it's a brilliant thing to do, because if you're playing against really strong players, whether it's like in the English league, French league, American league all the time, then when you do go to those big tournaments, it's not going to be as much of a shock. Like, I'm not naive. I'm not saying that if you're playing in the English league, it's not then going to be a challenge when you go and play against like players like Momo and Brighton. Obviously it is.
Absolutely.
But it's definitely like the pace of games a lot closer and will replicate international football a lot more than if you're playing in kind of like a lesser country.
Yeah, I suppose the more you expose yourself to better players, it can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's just everything's kind of learnt through practice and repetition. And so if you are getting that constant repetition of 20 to 25 games a season against really, really top players, then that's only going to make it easier for you to go and replicate that with your national team.
And what are your thoughts about players coming into the league from other countries?
I've never really had a problem with it. I like it. I think I guess I'm looking at it from a slightly different lens in the sense of like, I think you've got to look at the kind of teams that it affects. Like, I think if your club, for example, has got a rule where like they say, oh, you're not allowed to bring in players, then as a player you might feel like it's a bit unfair. Like, I don't know. But I'm sure there's certain clubs where they say like, we've got to have all English players. We can't bring in players from overseas just because they don't train. And if it's like a training policy or something that a club has, I guess maybe their players might feel like, oh, it's a bit unfair because other teams are bringing in like French players or American players or whatever, and we've not got any. But it's one of those things where like, if we can get it to a point where most teams are able to get international players in, it's just going to make the league unbelievable. Because I imagine what the Premier League would be like in the running game if it was only English players. The quality would be nowhere near as good. Like, I love English football, but let's be honest, most of the best players to play in the Premier League have been from other countries.
Yeah,
like Ronaldo, Henry, Salah, like big attackers that have scored plenty of goals in the Premier League would never have been able to play if they wasn't allowed to have international players. And I know it's so different in our sport, so I'm not going to try and compare the two too much. Because obviously, like, the money is completely different in our sport, like the licensing, everything. Like, we're not paying, no team's paying like weekly wages and like crazy salaries and whatever. So I get that it's a lot more difficult. But by all means, if clubs can make it work and if players can make it work, I think it just makes the league a step more professional. And it's only going to take us closer to like getting to that real elite level that we want the sport to get to.
I think even from a watching point of view, so someone like myself doesn't play anymore, but we're watching a lot of games. It's quite exciting to have these guys coming in.
Yeah, I completely see that. And I think like if you're watching, as much as you will enjoy watching English players play, if you're watching the same players battle out every season, like let's say things never moved around and you're just watching like the same clubs and you're watching like the same top players every single season, it would get boring. So having players that can come in and spice it up, like obviously West Brom have had some good ones over the years, like Valentino and Zach Dickey, and Greenbank had Toby, and they're just players that do kind of push the games to a slightly different level, and they play slightly differently as well. So it just changes the map of the game completely, I think.
It's just more exciting, really.
Definitely.
It really is. So obviously, Aspire, you obviously play a normal system with a 3 forwards and a keeper. So what was it like playing 4 out with England? Was that a difficult transition, or how was that?
I think for me, I really enjoyed the transition because I enjoy playing the way we play at Aspire, and I enjoy playing the way we play at England. But I'm kind of, as a winger, you can kind of be different types of winger. Like you can have wingers that often like to kind of like wait for the ball and then play off like the reverse spins and the big half spins. You can have wingers that like to do a lot of play off their front bumper. And like I think at England, definitely the system that we use relies quite a lot on not waiting for the ball and like coming and attacking it yourself as a winger with your front bumper and like keeping it moving quickly, because the way we get pressed at like international tournaments, you don't have the time to be like waiting and taking 2 touches and hooking it in the corners. You just don't get the space. You'll have like their middleman or one of their wingers coming to press you before you even know it. So I think I always, even when I was playing at Aspire, I've always been someone that likes to kind of play off 1 touch the majority of the time. And like, whilst I feel like I can do a 2 touch, that was how I think I've probably incorporated that a little bit more now, but I think back in the day, I used to always play off 1 touch anyway. So I didn't think it was quite as much of a problem coming into that England environment. But obviously experiences will be different based on your play style. And I mean, like, even if you just look at, let's say, people who played in a really defensive team just because they had to at club level, obviously they'd have a different experience coming in. If they're used to like having to look, like, let's say Marcus last season, obviously Greenbank a lot of the time, yes, against the smaller teams they were a bit more expansive, but obviously for him, just with like the teams they were playing, that he ended up locking that ball up quite a lot, as like people will have seen, and then it meant that it was a bit more of a transition when it came to England playing a very different style. Whereas I think if your team plays more of a passing style in the league anyway, it does take that pressure off because you're already in that mindset when you get to camp, and it's not as much of a problem to switch into it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting for what you're saying, because I think that's something about the Premier League and Championship. A lot of Championship clubs, when they get promoted, they play attack, really nice football.
Yeah.
And they get to the Premier League, all of a sudden, they got to play defensive. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that you say you got to adjust the way you play.
Yeah.
So we'd say 4 out was quite similar then to the way you're playing out Aspiring at quick touch.
Yeah, in the sense of
moving the
like,
ball.
yeah, and like you say, exactly as you say, the quick movement of the ball aspect was quite similar. And like as a winger, the main concepts are quite similar in terms of like trying to stay wide where you can and then coming in to pick the ball off back to like the pivots or across the other winger. Like all the concepts are the same, and it's like Powerchair football 101 if you're a winger. But then there were like little niches and small things that were different, just where like they'd been slightly more developed at Aspire for certain concepts. And like England, there was a lot of concepts that we hadn't really brought in at Aspire that like Colin had brought in at England. So there are obviously going to be differences. You're not going to play the exact same way when you've got two different people coaching you. But I think there's only so much you can do with Powerchair football as well, in the sense of like it's a smaller pitch than like a football pitch, and there's only 4 players, so you can't like change up formations too much. Like you can't go from like a 5 back to a 3 back. Like it's just it's not like that. That's not how it works. So there's little changes, obviously, like you would expect, but I didn't find the variation too big, and I didn't feel like I had to have like that much of a difference between like my Aspire hat and my England hat.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's only finite things you can do. It's
Yeah.
not like you got 100 different tactics.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all the same, really, isn't it? I mean, so obviously Adam McAvoy is now England coach.
Hmm.
Are there any tactical differences between what Colin and what Adam want you to play, or is it roughly similar?
The foundations of what we're trying to do are quite similar, I would say.
Okay.
Like it wasn't a case at all of Maka coming in and saying, let's rip up everything that you've done before and play a completely different way. Because as we said, there isn't that much that you can change, and I just don't think that would make sense given the like 5, 6, 7 years of work that have gone into what we were doing before Maka came in. But I think there's definitely been subtleties that have changed. Like for example, Maka's very keen on, if you can play forward in one pass, just do it. Like I think like you see it in the running game, and same in our game. Sometimes we like as players we can be drawn into like trying to play 3 or 4 or 5 passes just to like get out, whereas sometimes it actually can just be like one pass through the lines that catches the opposition off guard, where they are expecting you to like try and play 7 or 8 passes around them. Sometimes if you do play one in a space down the middle, it gets you up just as well. And like I think that was one of the main differences. It's just if you can do the same thing with one pass as you can with 5, choose the one pass, because the chances of you making a mistake are much lower, and it takes so much less time to do.
Yeah, you can see it in the games we were playing, because before you'd go back to the keeper quite a lot when you didn't need to.
Yeah.
So I think this way you're trying to go forward a bit quicker, negates the mistakes going back, a poor pass here and there.
Yeah.
It just sort of makes it more simple, right?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I don't mean I'm not saying that we've completely scrapped up going back. Like we still go back if it's the right time. And like we've kind of had a little look at our shape. To be fair, at the Euros, like our shape wasn't right at all. So we have changed that a bit and gone back to like sitting with a deep 3 and then having someone it's more of like a diamond where you've then got someone floating sort of down the middle, and there's lots of different things you can look at with the 4 out to like make it more effective. And we have kind of gone back a little bit and looked at what we were doing really well before that we weren't doing so well at the Euros, because obviously there was a lot of unhappiness with the Euros, and that was from within our camp as well. We really didn't feel like it was anywhere near our best levels. So we've gone back and tried to just see what we can do to simplify it. And as I said, like if we can do things in less passes now, we do try. And then we only really play when we have to, in the sense of like, if the best way to get out is by playing 7 or 8 passes around them, absolutely we're going to do it. But we try and now choose the most effective option as many times out of 10 as we can.
Definitely. So obviously World Cup coming up October. How are you feeling about it?
I'm buzzing, I'm not going to lie. Like it's the absolute pinnacle of our sport. Like even just the occasion, like going there and having all the best Powerchair footballers in the world in one kind of like complex is just something you don't get very often. And like you never really know if you're going to have another World Cup. So like obviously I hope I'm going to have a few more World Cups because my
I'm
age.
sure you
But
will.
like
I'm
you
sure.
can't ever assume anything just because you never know, like, especially with the nature of our sport, with like health, how that can decline and stuff like that. Like you don't know how teams are going to look different and how your personal life's going to look different. So I think you've got to just take these moments for what they are and like really appreciate how big of a spectacle the World Cup is. And so as much as we're really going there to win, I also wanted maybe more than I did at my first World Cup just because I was so like focused on making sure I did okay. This time I want to be able to kind of look around and smell the roses a bit more and say like,
Just enjoy it a bit
actually
more, right?
this is not every day. This is like something you might only get to do a couple of times in your life, or like this might even be your last one. So that's the mindset I'm going to go with. And then once that's like worn off a little bit, it will very much be like this is time to win now.
I think that's the way you gotta do it, to be honest. You don't take it for granted, you know, you just never know, innit, really.
Yeah, definitely.
So, obviously, Aspire play on the wing.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself staying there? Do you want to play in the middle or any in goal maybe? Or you want to stay where you are?
That's like something that people ask me quite a lot. I
Okay.
really don't know. Like, I'm not sure. It's obviously like right now, I'm very comfortable in the wing, and like when I'm playing at club and international level with John Bowling, there's no reason to change it right now. But like I've like over the last year or two, I've been spending more and more time in the middle, especially
Yeah, I've noticed it quite a lot.
especially at Spire, like when John's not like there at like a regionals, or even when like I've started on the wing in a game, a lot of the time it ends up me and John switching, and like it's quite a fluid system we've got where like we almost play, like I said with England, we almost play a diamond where me and John are like both middle players, and then we take turns switching it out onto the wing. So like, I feel like in terms of like my ball switching and like my dribbling in the middle, that's got a lot stronger over the last year or two just from doing that. So I think like if there was a world where I wanted to play in the middle in the future, like it's an option, but I'm really not trying to narrow my options down just now. If I can try and get like equally strong in both, I think that's like an ideal position to be in, to be fair.
I mean, you got the skills to play wherever you want, mate. I mean, it's not
Thank
really
you.
an issue. John's more than happy to let you do it now and then. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You got such a good dynamics with him that it's really nice
Yeah.
to watch. And I've enjoyed watching you play in the middle a bit more. I've
Thank you.
seen that your confidence is really improved and your 1v1 dribbling's gotten so much better. You're
Yeah,
more physical now.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge part of my game that I've really worked on, because what I really noticed when I went to like into England squad for the first time, and I was like at camp and at tournaments against really elite players, is like whilst I felt like I could compete with them in terms of like passing and finishing and like stuff where the ball was moving, I felt like when the ball was getting trapped up, I was so much weaker. I was getting pushed off the ball by people, and like maybe a little bit of it was like me being physically smaller. I think a lot of it was just technique. And like over the last 18 months ish, I would say that's been like the main skill that's come on the most, is actually there's so much you can do to like position your chair better to make you stronger in the dribble and make you like
I was
harder
going to
to
ask
get past.
that. Yeah, so what is exactly that you're doing? A bit different.
It's essentially, it's just like, I don't want to give away too much, if you know what I mean.
Oh, fair enough.
Nah,
No,
I'm
no,
joking.
true.
I'm joking. I'm only kidding. No, it's more like, I think it's the angle of the chair is really important. Like, if you don't kind of get told that, you don't know. So it's one of those you've kind of got to try and figure out for yourself and what works best for you. But it's kind of always making sure you've got your chair angled in the way that's going to help you use your back wheel. Like, that's the kind of thing you get always told,
Back
isn't it?
wheel, yeah.
Use your back wheel to dribble. But you don't then kind of figure out sometimes that you've got to have your chair at the best angle to be able to use your back wheel. So I think it's been like really looking at people, like especially like Momo, I looked at loads, and John, and like looking at the best dribblers and seeing how they have their chair angled, especially when they're playing in the middle. And like what I saw was just they're always like angled in ways that allows them to like always push the opponent back into where they want them to then use their back wheel and kind of burn past them. Because as much as you can like push through people with the front of the bumper, the back wheel is the way that you really like get the movement on the ball, and then you can kind of get around people and flick it in one clean motion. So that's what I've kind of learned the most, I would say.
So for those who don't know, the back wheel is the strongest part of the chair, right? That's why you want to do that.
Yeah, so essentially, just like, obviously it's strong, and like if people push through you on that part of the chair, it's a foul, and like it makes your head bob and it's a foul.
Yeah.
And then also just because obviously the wheels are spinning forwards, it then makes the ball like pop out and roll as well. So like rather than just like the ball staying static like it would if it was right in the middle of the guard, when you use the back wheel, obviously you're driving forward and you kind of like squeeze the ball in against their chair, and then you like release it out at the last minute, and because they're still pushing in really hard, it like applies the pressure the ball needs to then pop out, and then it runs alongside your chair really nicely. Yeah.
See, so as a player, this is what I didn't get. That's why I was never able to get up there in the league, because I just didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Like people say use your back wheel. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's just kind of because of it's the wheels rolling and there's pressure from both of you. That's almost what you want. Like you watch someone like Momo, and he doesn't just, there's empty space. He doesn't always drive into it. Like sometimes he encourages people to come and really push against the side of his chair, because it's when you're getting the pressure from someone else, it then actually makes it easier to like flick out your back wheel and get the movement on the ball.
The thing with him is if you back off, then he's going to do you. If you go towards him, he does you.
It's unbelievable. Like he is one of those people that just seems to get out of any situation. I mean, like Francis Kickens and the goal kicks, I literally just tap the ball to him, and even if we've got like three men closing him in, he always finds a way to get out, because he's just got like the deftest touch, and the way he's such like a magical player, because he can take really neat little touches to get out of situations, and then he can also just outmuscle you. Like he can also just use his back wheel and get around you so easily. So it's one of them. You've got to just take a hat off to someone like that, and like as much as we feel like we're getting closer to them in terms of beating them in dribbles more and more now, it's still like with him, it's like 8 or 9 out of 10 times he wins.
Yeah, it feels impossible sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you do? I'm glad you're doing it, not me. Cause
it's. I guess it's trying to like obviously accept that it's like it's about not having an ego in, I guess, in the sense of like I know people would love to just go like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go toe to toe with Momo and I'm gonna beat him 10 times out of 10. But we all know from experience and just from watching him like that isn't gonna happen. So it's about like working as a team to try and almost like go against it rather than just trying to beat him 1v1 all the time. So it's like it's about kind of forcing them to pass away from him, I guess. If they've got a kick in and you've got him pinned and like he can't get the ball to move with it, even to be fair, he finds a way to get out either way, but the logical way to do it is force them to pass into a different player, because then you can kind of try and get the ball off them. But we try that as much as we can, and there's still times where he gets out with it either way. So he's just one of those generational players that like is so difficult to play against.
It's a difficult one. So who's the best player that you've played against? What would you take from their game if you could?
So like I think I've kind of already alluded to it there.
Yeah, I think
like,
so.
I love that. For me, like the player I love how John Balding plays, and like obviously I don't ever play against him. So like the best I've ever played against would have to be Momo. Like he just, as I've said, he's got absolute quality to do really technical things and do really deft touches and take the sting out of balls when it looks like you literally couldn't take a touch of it, and he always seems to find a way. And then you combine that with like his strength and his quality in the dribble, and it just makes him unbelievable. But I think the main skill I would probably take is, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but one thing that he in particular can do, a lot of the French can do it, but him in particular, that like other players from other countries don't seem to be able to do. And we've always thought it was the chair, but it just seems to be something about him as well, and like his weight distribution and just how unbelievable he is when he's driving like flat with the ball, he always seems to be able to like get those flicks. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, when he's driving forward, and like obviously you know how hard it is from playing yourself. It's easy enough to get the power when you're reversing, but when you're driving forward, it can often be hard. You kind of got to like stop and then flick it. Whereas he's so good at like getting so much power on the flick, and then when he doesn't flick it, he sends people so much. like let's say he's got the ball through the middle of the pitch, he's driving in a straight line. He always does the right thing, like whether it's flicking it to someone and just getting loads of separation, or he's so good at selling it like he's gonna flick it, and then like feinting the flick and just driving in a straight line, and that gets people like sending them to the shops all the time as well. It's just like a unbelievable skill to have, and I think having that makes it so much harder for someone to play against you for sure.
And it's not something you can teach. That's just
No.
God-given talent. Like,
No, that's just like
that's
I've
it.
tried to do what he can do for ages, like in terms of that flicking, and I think everyone tries to flick the ball as well as he does, and everyone tries to send people once in a while. But in terms of the like I think people can do it as a one-off maybe, but the consistency of doing it is just like second to none.
It's difficult. It's mind-blowing, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously John Bowling, we spoke about him quite a bit.
Yeah.
What role has he played in your development, do you think? It's a big question. I know.
A massive, yeah. He's played a really massive role. Obviously, the biggest thing is that he was the man that made the decision basically on his own to call me up into Aspire in the first place. And then basically, obviously it's a bit different now, where we both see each other as like equal like parts of the team, in the sense of like we both bounce off each other now. Very much at the start, it was like I was just always asking him if I needed help with anything. I didn't understand anything. I knew I could always ask him and go to him, like for advice and for help. And he was so like nice about it, if you know what I mean. Like he was always so. It was one of them. It's like it was almost like a big brother little brother relationship, because he was so harsh on me. Like if I was, even when I was like 12, 13, if I was making mistakes, because he knew I could get to like a really high level if I was to listen to him and to work hard, like he would be really tough on me if I made mistakes and like I wasn't progressing as he thought I should be. But then he was also equally like a massive advocate for me if I was doing stuff well. And like if anyone else did anything bad, I knew that he'd like support me, if you know what I mean. And like, or at that time anyway, if anyone else was like to give me any like trouble, he would always back me. I knew that, and it was just then making sure from his point of view that I was progressing as well as I possibly could, because he didn't want to see me like waste potential or anything, which like now looking back I completely understand. But at the time it's always difficult when you've got someone that feels like they're just nagging you. It's the same with like parents who want you to do well, like even if it feels
Absolutely.
like they're nagging you to like do your homework or something, and you're like, oh, this is the most unfair thing in the world. When you look back and you see that they were just kind of trying to see you do well and like do the best for yourself in life, like that's how I kind of feel with John and the football. If he wasn't so harsh on me and he just let me get away with being sloppy or being lazy or whatever, I wouldn't have got to where I am today. So I think I've got a lot to thank him for in that sense. And I always try and like give him a big shout out for everything he's done when I like speak to people about it, because it is like a massive thing. He kind of taught me how to play really nice passive football, and he also, was super tough on me.
And you got to imagine he's like your family, because you spend so much
Yeah.
time with him, week in, week out. You probably spend more time with him than some of your family. So it's insane.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think out of any player, I've spent the most time playing with him by a mile. Like off the court, I spend so much time with him, and like we are like brothers, like I said. And then on the court as well, we're so used to playing with each other. Whether it's like because we've played at Sparks now for like 4 or 5 years, and the same with England. Like I'm so used to just looking at the middle of the pitch and it being John there, and I think it's just he feels the same way about looking out wide and seeing me there, and we just kind of have got to that point where we don't really need to speak that much anymore on the pitch. We kind of just know where the other one's going to be, and like I know where he likes the ball, he knows where I like it, and we're able to now, like I said before, John was really harsh on me. We've now got to that point because we're so close and like so open with each other. We can both kind of hold each other accountable for our standards. Like if I know that, especially like let's say we're defending around the edge of our box, and John knows that like I've chased a ball that I shouldn't have, he can give me like trouble for it and say like, what are you doing? That's not what we do. And then I can do the same for him. Like if I feel like he's come for a ball that was maybe mine or something, I'm happy now to say the same back to him, and neither of us feel like aggrieved about it and think like, oh, how dare they. We just know that we've got that relationship with each other, and we're in a place where we really respect each other and can hold each other accountable for stuff.
It's amazing to see, exactly. Just you guys get on so well.
Yeah.
You're just telepathic. You don't need to speak. It's just good experience you've had together.
Yeah.
And you can see it on the pitch. It's really fun to watch. Well, from my point of view, it's fun.
Yeah, no, he's like, I always say, like, he's my favourite person to play with by a mile. Like, I think a lot of that is because of how easy it feels. Because we just, like,
Sure.
because it doesn't feel like we have to really communicate and, like, think about what the other one's doing. Because, as you said, it feels so, like, telepathic. It feels just so right and natural to play with each other. And so, like, if I come on a pitch and I know I'm playing with him, you kind of feel like you've got, like, a head start before the game's even started, and I'd hope like he'd feel the same.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does. Yeah, definitely. So, what advice would you give to upcoming players? What do you think is the best advice that you could give him?
Best advice. I said a little bit about like the patience earlier, but in terms of like actually tangibly like improving like your technical skills, I'd say you've got to become a student of the game. Like, I think that's quite generic advice, but it's the most true advice. Like, there's no secrets. I think if you looked at my screen time over like the last 2 or 3 years, maybe even like 5, like since I've started really kind of like knuckling down with the football, if you looked at my screen time, like the amount of times I've probably spent watching like clips over the last few years is so much higher than what it ever would have been before. Just because I've realised now that like there's so much improvement that can be done when you're not actually on the pitch. Like, it's easy to imagine that like, yeah, doing drills and repetition on the pitch is going to help. But I think you honestly get just as much of an improvement in your skills from watching people do them rather than actually doing them. Like, yes, by all means, if all you want to achieve out of a session is improve, like, finishing really tight to the post and getting your shots in the corners, obviously doing it is the best way to do it, because there's not much to learn about that. But if it's about actually learning better positioning and game intelligence, watching the game's probably going to help you way more, because you see how the best people do it and then try and replicate it. And I think like imitation is easily the best way to improve in anything. Like, if you can watch what the best players are doing, try and imitate it, and then add a little bit of your own like flair and kind of personal skills to it, that's like the best way to improve, without a doubt.
Obviously, I agree, because my channel is based off that.
Yeah.
Just watching footage, trying to give people some information, because sometimes it's difficult to see it.
Yeah.
So just trying to point it out, that's what I'm all about, and getting you on it is very important for that. So yeah, some great advice, I would say. What is the hardest thing for you to master in Powerchair football?
What, like the hardest skill, or just in general?
Anything in general. What's the hardest thing that's taken you a while to get used to, or to learn, or anything like that?
I actually kind of said it before. It was the learning to like tackle and to dribble, like the physicality of the game. I would have to say that. I know I've kind of already alluded to it, but that was what I really struggled with up until like 18 months, 2 years ago. And I felt like I could hold my own in general, but when I was playing like the really big games, I really struggled to hold my own against someone like the better players in the dribble. Whereas now there's not many people, maybe bar like Momo, for example, or like a John. Like, there's not really many people that I wouldn't back myself to be in a dribble, or at very least like win my fair share of them. Like, I don't think there's anyone that could like dominate me compared to what I felt like before, where it was like I felt like I was going to win less than my fair share of dribbles. So that was the main thing I kind of worked on. And as I said about being a student of the game, a lot of it came from like watching what the best dribblers were doing first, and then actually when I was like in training sessions, it's not something you can really do drills with, dribbling, unless you're like dribbling up and down the hall with someone, just because it's not really that kind of skill. But it's one of those things you've got to just try in a game. And if like for me in training, a lot of the time, like me and John would be split up on different teams, and like I'd be playing in the middle of the other team. So I knew that like if I was getting the beating of him much more and more and more, then I was obviously improving at the skill, and then I was ready to kind of take it to play against other people as well.
Yeah, you sort of got to do it in games. There's no other way of replicating it, of the decision making as well.
Yeah.
You got split seconds to decide, and if you're
a
battling bowling each week,
exactly,
you're gonna get better for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So if you could change anything about Powerchair football, what would you change and why?
Oh, I think the one that always springs to mind for me, and it's something we speak about. We spoke about it at England quite a lot because I don't know if you know, like when we're at tournaments, but especially when we're at camps, like often there's a lot of downtime, like because obviously like the chairs have got to charge between sessions, and
Yeah,
like you have like meals and like video analysis sessions and stuff. We often have like 2 or 3 hours at a time where we're just sort of chatting and drinking coffee or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Just like find something
yeah,
to do. So like we often have sort of deep chats about that kind of thing, and I would say the one that sort of comes up the most and the one I sort of agree with is I would love to like make the 2-on-1 rule favor the attacking team slightly more. If because we always talk about wanting the game to be more passing, and a lot of the time teams get punished when they're like, let's say like the winger's just got a front bumper to the middle man, and they might be able to switch it out to the other side, but like the one who's front bumpering it keeps slightly too close to the middle man, and so like they've blown up the play and they've stopped what could have been like a beautiful passing attack because of a slight bit too close. So I think like obviously I can understand defensively. I think the defensive 2-on-1 rule should stay the same because we don't want teams being too hard to break down. We still need like space to pass. But I think if they can like make it so that when you're attacking and like when you've got in possession of the ball, the 2-on-1s are a bit less tight than when you're out of possession. I think that would only like make the attacking part of the game so much easier, and it would make it more accessible for like if teams that can't get as much power and maybe like are in like, the championship and like regional teams that maybe because like, it's not as much of a problem when you're like players that can get a lot of power on the ball. They can be far away from each other and still get it to each other. If it's players that maybe struggle a bit with the power, they're in like your storms, your DB bullets, that have to be close to be able to pass with each other. If they can get a bit closer in attack to then link up, I think it could just make the attacking level of all teams go up a bit.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it makes the game more fun to watch. It's easier to play. There's more
Yeah.
chances of passing, and you get rewarded for passing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you get like punished for trying to pass. This shouldn't be
Yeah.
the way.
No, definitely not. That's what I feel. Like, there's nothing more frustrating than when you're like playing against a team that clearly wants to defend and like play for like a draw or play just to like limit the score, and you're the team that's like the protagonist, and you're like going out trying to get the ball moving, and they don't want it to move, and they're just like happy to let you give away 2-on-1s where all you're trying to do is get a bit closer so that you can then move the ball. So it's so frustrating, and when it does feel like you're being punished for just trying to do the right thing. And so I think if they made that change, or at least trialed it in like maybe low pressure situation, like they said to us, like play those rules at a camp or something, and if we kind of gave it a go and said what we thought about it, I think that would be probably the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I would agree, 100%. We're almost at the end, and it's been a bit of a long one.
That's
But
right.
so last season obviously didn't go quite the way
Yeah.
Aspire would have wanted, and for yourself. So it's a bit of a dumb question, but what's your goals for this season?
Yeah, like, as you say, it's last season. It was like just a nearly season. Like obviously we're unbeaten in the league, only conceded 3 goals, and then we're just 1 point off. And like we did have games that we felt like we drew 0-0 with Middlesbrough and we drew 0-0 with West Brom. And I know it seems crazy to say that like West Brom drawing 0-0 with them is drop points, but in the context of last season, I'm sure they'd admit as well, like they were one of those teams that you want to take the points off.
Yeah,
And
they
obviously
weren't. They
we beat
weren't
them the
great.
second time round, but you needed to sort of anyone that wasn't in the top three themselves, those are teams you needed to take points off. So obviously being 1 point off is really frustrating, and then in the cup, losing on penalties to Teesside, who are like the eventual winners. So again, we basically like were such fine margins away from each. So I guess if we can turn at least in one of those competitions this year, if we can turn like that nearly like that 1 point or that one penalty, whatever it is, into like an actual tangible success this year, that would be great. So that's for like from a club point of view. I want to win at least one trophy this year, and then hopefully get the World Cup to go with it and have 2 medals
the
by the
big
end of the
one.
season. That's the big one.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was so fine margins.
Yeah,
I don't think you guys played bad. You're just unlucky at times.
yeah. I think it was
And
just but it was just a bit of stuff not quite falling for us. And also like you've got to look at yourselves as well, and like if you are drawing games 0-0 that you should be scoring in, like if we score 1 goal in one of those 0-0 games, we win the league. So that's what you've got to look at, and you've got to say
it's tight.
as much as you can like blame other stuff, you've got to like look at yourselves and say what could we have done to get it over the line as well. But we'll obviously be looking to improve that for this season.
I got one more question for you. It's give me your all-time starting 4 and 2 subs. Who you picking?
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna play.
Also, are you playing 4 out or not?
I'm gonna play 4 out. You've got to play 4 out
Okay.
when you've got like the option for all these great players. Wait, is this like in their primes or what? What we saying? Like
Yeah,
players
in
in
their
their prime.
prime.
So in their
Yeah.
primes. Okay.
Yeah.
I would play. It's so difficult because like, I'm gonna
It's
have
a
to
tough
play.
one.
You're gonna have to play people out of position because like, oh, this is tough, man.
Well, players can
All
play
right.
in multiple positions.
Yeah, so
It's
I'm gonna
just
have to
getting
play.
them
I'm
in the
gonna
right
play.
place.
So like Momo's going on the wing, for example, for me. I'm
I'd
playing John
agree.
centrally. I'm playing John centrally. I'm
Okay.
playing Momo on the wing. I'm gonna play. I don't want to do anyone dirty here. That's the problem, because like
It's
obviously
your
Chris is the
opinion.
keeper at England, but I want Brian in the team as well. So that's really tough. I think I'm gonna go with Brian in goal.
Okay.
But like Chris is my honourable mention. So sorry if you do watch this, Chris.
Well, there is a
Um,
bench, don't forget. So
oh yeah, so yeah, he'll be on.
maybe
So
not
yeah,
your
Brian
choice.
in goal, John in the middle, Momo on one wing. On the other wing, I'll go with. If we're doing like players in their prime, I'll pick a particular one. I'll go for Euro 2019, Marcus. If he's playing
Okay.
like if he's playing like in that tournament, then he gets in my starting 4. Um, if he's in his prime, and then
Yeah, he's
on
in
the
his prime.
bench, I'll go with Chris on the bench, and I'll go with Riley Johnson as well. He
Okay, good shot.
like, I think obviously what he can offer like in terms of like redirecting the balls on set pieces. Obviously, I know he's not got Pete Winslow with him, but I think if Brian's delivering, coming up for the corners and delivering them, and then Riley's doing like the American redirect, that's gonna get the team a few goals. And if I'm the manager of that, I'm thinking like, yeah, happy days, we've got our goals sorted. Get John pelting some for the edge of the box, and like we're in a good position. So that'd be my squad of 6. Like there's quite a few that were kind of like close misses, but I think if we're going in primes, just because I've kind of picked more experienced players, like those are players that have not necessarily near the end of their careers, but like they're very much like got pedigree and they've experienced a lot already. So those are the ones I'm gonna pick.
It's a hell of a team.
It really is.
Interesting. You didn't put yourself.
I was never gonna put myself
Fair
because
enough.
like as much as I'd love to play with those people, I think you've got to take yourself out of it. Like I'd love to play in that team, but nah. I wanted to pick other players.
It's a hell of a team. They would win everything. I mean,
And
there's
who
no
even would
doubt.
be out there to play against them? That would just
That's a
be
good point.
that would be
That's
a
a good
joke.
point.
That would be a joke.
Well, Dan, just want to say thank you so much. That's all I've got anyway. Is there anything you want to say or shout out before we end it here?
Nah, I think we've said like most of what I wanted to say, and yeah, I'm just thank you for inviting me on, and I hope the channel goes well this season. I'll be watching it, and yeah, make sure you give Aspire a good shout out in the analysis videos as well.
Definitely, we'll be doing it. Just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It means quite a lot. Getting a player of your caliber is a real big thing for me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck for the season. Good luck for the World Cup. I'm sure we'll be talking later on about it all.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, I might see if I can get you back on just to
Okay.
get a bit of analysis if you're up for it.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely. All right, yes, thank you so much.
All right,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And yeah, we'll speak to you later on, yeah?
Cheers.
All right, mate.